Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner of the page, you will get taken to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book was full of a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now, and I've been using it to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and I've been using it to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. From that same page, you can also download the actual worksheet process itself. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to those audio files, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness, and if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of the Reality Management Worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, please do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, and or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you and answer a testimonial, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you notification about what day and time that occurred. So you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just boatloads easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. So, please feel free to raise a hand and interrupt, raise a question, add a comment, or a refutation. I will get back to reading the last few pages of Guy Finley's book, The Book of One Love, One Life, One Journey. Guy Finley, the next section is titled Courage Unleashed. Live the life you have always wanted. Guy Finley writes, when we look at the world around us and the world within us, perhaps we wish we could change things and make them better. But it takes courage to face any of these difficulties head on, and sometimes our fear seems stronger than our better wishes. Human beings have faced this kind of dilemma since the beginning of time, and fortunately, many have made the better choice in spite of their fears and self-doubts. The encouraging message that these brave ones have left for others is simply this: Just take even the smallest step you can, despite your fear, with no concern for the outcome. This is the way to ultimately succeed as a human being and bring about results beyond what you can imagine right now. However, if you don't make that first shaky step, nothing can change. Here's an example of this uplifting wisdom that comes down to us from across the ages. Plato is quoted as saying, quote, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light," close quotes. Guy Finley writes, "We are capable of so much more than we think we are, but we will never prove that to ourselves until we take that all-important first step. Each time you take the step that you're sure you can't, you discover that the you who would not and was only a thought that believed it could not." So the whole point is, when you take a step that your mind is telling you you can't take, when your fear is so strong, you discover that who you thought you were, the one who thought you could not possibly do this thing, that you're not who you believed you were. And as with all such liberating truths, we must prove them true for ourselves, or else they serve to let no one alone, and those of us who wish to wake up and walk away from who and what we've been, if we can't walk away in that first step, we never change anything. So he says, we start this leg and every leg of our great inner journey by relying on the following understanding, and then building upon it. So here's the understanding. The more we know, the farther we can see. So take as long as you need with the following lesson and allow yourself to see something new about the true nature of discouragement. And then watch how a new and greater personal freedom dawns in your life. The only purpose that discouraged feelings serve is to keep your thoughts on what you cannot do. And with your attention fixed in this fashion on the impossible, there's no room for discovering what is possible, for discovering what you can do. Let's cover this important discovery one more time. The only thing that discouraged feelings do, or thoughts that lead to discouraging feelings, is to keep you busy doing nothing except feeling sorry for yourself, which is the perfect guarantee that your sorry situation will remain hopelessly the same. Enough is enough. You don't have to put up with one more day of discouraged thoughts. There's another choice you can learn to make besides falling into those familiar feelings of failure. Use this next higher idea to help you start thinking about those old discouragements in a new way. Whenever we suffer over what we aren't able to do, or to have, or to win, or to grasp, or to work through, our attention in these moments is always riveted on our own thoughts. Thoughts that are busy telling us we're somehow stuck. Maybe you can recognize some of these heavy-hearted inner voices. They say in one way or another, quote, "I'll never get out of this mess," close quotes. Or, quote, "I'm too stupid to learn these things," close quotes. Or, quote, "I must have done something terrible to deserve this," close quotes. "Well, certainly there's no point in going any further," close quotes. And, quote, "This is definitely hopeless," close quotes. Now, on the surface of things, Guy Finley writes, These are all too familiar whispers of defeat. And these voices that reach our inner ears, speaking to us with our own voice, they seem to be genuinely concerned with our unfortunate situation. But a deeper look into their covert operation reveals something totally different. Follow the next 4 ideas closely and see something that is both shocking and self-liberating. Idea number 1. The more these gloomy voices talk to us, the more discouraged we feel. Point number 2. The more discouraged we feel, the more certain we are that we have no other choice but to feel that way. Point number 3. And the more convinced we are that we have no choice, the less choice we actually have. Point number 4. These unconscious inner dialogues actually produce the very dread and dead end that we fear. So those are the 4 points. The more these gloomy voices talk to us, the more we feel discouraged. The more discouraged we feel, the more certain we are that we have no other choice but to feel the way we feel. And the more convinced we are that we have no choice, we actually cut off choice. And finally, these unconscious inner dialogues actually produce the very dreaded dead end that we all fear. Guy Finley writes, we end up being able to go farther with our wish for broader personal horizons because unbeknownst to ourselves, we now unconsciously believe that, well, I think I misread that. I'm going to back up and start that paragraph over. We end up not able to go farther with our wish for a broader personal horizons because unknown to ourselves, we now unconsciously believe that there's no way to get past wherever it is that we perceive ourselves to be limited or tied down. The key idea in this part of our investigation lies in the word, quote, perceive, close quotes. For the purposes of this study, always remember that the word perceive rhymes with deceive. And that's precisely what this faulty perception is. It is self-deception. Here's proof. There are no dead ends in real life. There are no dead ends in real life. How can you say that? Because life is a flow. Things are always changing. Now here's why this is true, he writes. There are no dead ends in real life because in any given moment, there's always something higher to do with your life besides suffering over what you think you can't have or do or be. Here's just one example of a higher action that you can learn to take when faced with the presence of any discouraging inner state. See that the size of the discouragement you feel is directly proportionate to the size of your insistence that life conform to your demands. Your discouragement is built by the difference between what life is unfolding and what you think it should be. So you begin by seeing that the size of your discouragement is directly proportionate to the size of your insistence that life conform to your demands. And then, having verified this truth for yourself, dare to quietly drop that self-defeating demand. This is Michael Ryce's Cancel the Goal. This is, in the book, It's Deeper Than That, and in the book, The Awakened Brain by Lisa Miller, this is what we actually have isolated physiological brain parts that facilitate either holding on to something and clinging tightly or canceling the goal and letting it go, softening up and releasing your grip. Guy Finley goes on here and writes, now, watch in amazement as your discouraged feelings fade away leaving you with fresh energies that allow you to not only have a brand new way to proceed with what you wish, but which also grant you the strength to begin the next leg of your quest. How did you get that extra energy? You canceled your goal for life to fit your design rather than letting life have its flow. And as you cancel your goal for something to be different than it is, you free up the energy that you were spending focused on things you have no control over, and now you've got that extra energy to focus on yourself and the things you do have control over to make a change. And all of a sudden, the hopelessness melts away, like the mist before the morning sun. Guy Finley writes, for instance, maybe you have felt discouraged because you wanted to learn anything new, right? You wanted to learn a language or you wanted to learn an instrument. And you felt discouraged because this higher skill or difficult lesson seemed to have you stuck, but you felt sure that it was beyond your abilities, and so you didn't pursue it. You just resigned yourself to feeling discouraged. While this kind of self-defeating behavior is commonly accepted as natural, it's also totally unnecessary. You can learn to do something even higher. Instead of falling into those familiar feelings of futility over yourself, try dropping that unconscious demand that you have to be who you think you should be. And instead of dwelling in discouragement over who your own thoughts are telling you that you'll never be, instead of dwelling on that, you get started working on who and what you are right now. In other words, just do what's in your power to do and refuse to be discouraged about anything else. And keep repeating this new conscious action one step at a time, over and over again. It is in your power to learn whatever it takes, one lesson at a time, and to make it all the way to your designated goal. Here's one last special thought to help summarize this important lesson. Let it reveal a life free of all doubts and despondency. And then here's a quote. Any conversation you permit yourself to have with discouraging thoughts guarantees you will end up with a good reason for feeling discouraged. When it comes to any negative thought, the first word you have with it is the same as giving it the last word with you. So, here's a little paragraph in Guy Finley's book that to me points right to one of the bottom line observations. It says, if I have a negative thought about myself or somebody else active in my mind, or a negative emotion that I'm aware of, I can instantly know three things. The first one is this thought, this emotion is based in a lie. It either is fully a lie or it's based in a lie. The second point I can know is it's not about what's going on in the moment. This is an old tape playing. This is something coming up from my past, what's been stored in my intellect, my belief systems, my trauma energies. It's not about what's happening in the present moment. And the third thing I can know about it is if I sit here spinning in thought about it, if I decide to speak or take an action from it, I'm just going to make my life worse, not better. I like to say, it's like throwing garbage on the buffet table right before dinner. It does not enhance the dining experience. So, Guy Finley encourages us to practice these higher lessons in self-liberation until you're free of all feelings of futility. You'll soon see how this new action gives you the last laugh on discouragement. Any conversation you permit yourself to have with discouraging thoughts inside your own mind guarantees that you will wind up with a good reason for feeling discouraged. In other words, you aren't going to talk your way out of it. You aren't going to think your way out of it. You're not going to beat it with logic. As Michael Ryce says over and over again, to heal, you've got to be out of your mind. You got to get out of the stuck cycle of thoughts which gave rise to and perpetuates your suffering. So, we're on to the last few pages and a closing prayer. The last section is titled, Go Beyond Your Present Limitations and Meet Your Limitless Self. And Guy writes, for as long as people have been asking questions about this hole in our soul and how to fill it and where we might find its missing part of ourselves, the great sages have been telling us one great truth. What we seek, let alone the journey to realize it, will not be found in some new place to go, or in a new person to be with, or in a new career. What we are told, in fact, is that the one great journey we're invited to make is not only within us, but it is meant to be entered into and realized in every moment of our life. That sensing we have that there must be something more than the life we presently know, this is an invitation from the indwelling divine to set out on the search for this other higher level of being that we are already as one with. Here's some of the encouraging ageless wisdom that tells us there's another life we can be living and that we're meant to find it. St. John of the Cross is quoted as saying, on this road, therefore, to abandon one's own way is to enter on the true way, or to speak more correctly, to advance to the goal. For the spirit which has courageously resolved on passing inwardly and outwardly beyond the limits of its own nature, this spirit enters the limitless higher world. And then he quotes Richard Jeffries, quote, there's an immense ocean over which the mind can sail, upon which the vessel of thought has not yet been launched. Let us haul it over the belt of land, launch on the ocean, and sail outwards. There is much beyond all that has ever been imagined. And then Beatrice Hinkle, quote, there is one great and universal wish of humankind expressed in all religions, in all art and philosophy, and in all human life. It is the wish to pass beyond himself as he is now. One great universal wish of mankind. And then he quotes Maurice Nicole, quote, we have no right to believe that our ordinary level of consciousness is the highest form of consciousness or the sole mode of experience possible to man. We have to consider the possibility not only that there is a level above our ordinary level of consciousness to which we are only occasionally awakened, but that our ordinary consciousness becomes integrated into a larger system when that happens. So we can get to a higher level of consciousness, and when we do, our normal way of thinking gets integrated into that higher level of consciousness and awareness. It makes me think of the man made of salt who dips his toe in the ocean and part of him disappears and he gets all upset. And his teacher said, wait a minute, I thought you said you wanted to understand the ocean. You wanted to be one with the ocean. You wanted to study the ocean. Yeah, but I want to keep myself just the way I am as I do it. Guy Finley goes on and writes, when we read these words, it becomes clear that we are not alone in our wish to live from another level of being, even while going through our usual daily experiences. Others have wanted it, sensed its possibility, and even entered that new place within themselves. It's only natural, as our hearts and minds are stirred by these celestial ideas, that we ask the age-old question that seekers such as ourselves have been asking for millennia. How do we find, let alone realize, the fulfillment that these masters tell us awaits within us? Your contemplation and dedicated work to actualize the following 7 golden rules for true self-fulfillment will prove them to be powerful guides. These are not the same as the laws that govern this world, nor are they what govern the lives of the vast majority of men and women who struggle upon it. As is true of all creatures, these individuals have the life they serve by law. Their nature is their experience. These 7 rules are for those who wish to know and to be one with the divine life that is the unseen source of all that exists, so that by choosing consciously to align with its immutable laws and making whatever sacrifices that obedience calls for, these people not only fulfill the needs of this living goodness, capital L, living, capital G, goodness, but by agreeing to do so, they also fulfill their own highest possibilities at the same time. So if you would like to choose to align yourself with living with the immutable laws and make whatever sacrifices that obedience calls for, you start fulfilling your own needs and you also live into your highest possibilities at the same time. Point number 1. Choose what is and let go of what isn't. Let go of all that isn't. Let go of everything life isn't doing right now that you think it should. Cancel all the goals around it if you're using a Reality Management Worksheet from Michael Ryce's work, and watch what happens differently. Point number 2. Give yourself completely to what you love, but only if it loves you. So, this little flip here at the end of it will wake you up so you don't duplicate Elizabeth Gilbert's unhealthy, obsessed, neurotic pattern that they were calling love or obsession or passion between Liz Gilbert and Rhea. So you only give yourself completely to what you love if it also loves you, if in the giving and receiving cycle things are flowing and growing and moving forward. The third point is, do nothing more or less in the world than what is needful. That always allows you to pursue freely what your heart calls you to do. And there are people who've reached these points in spiritual teachings and they've said, well, now wait a minute, what would happen if I lived my life by asking my inner guidance before everything I do? What if I ask my inner guidance before I take another bite of food? What if I ask my inner guidance whether I should turn left or right at this intersection? Whether I ask my inner guidance, should I respond to this email with the anger that first welled up, or should I diffuse it somehow before answering? What these people have discovered, to a person, everyone I've ever met who's tried this, is that when they do it, their life goes so much better they couldn't even imagine it before beginning that practice. And also, every single person I know that has tried that for a while has drifted back into the old distracted living, has drifted back into the old shoulds of life. And they get called every once in a while to go back into, oh, remember when I did this exercise and how useful it was? Maybe I should go try that again. Here's the fourth point. Share with others only what is true or otherwise conducive to your mutual well-being. Share with others only what is true and conducive to your mutual well-being. Point number 5. Never leave your mind or your mouth unattended. To me, that's just saying practice mindfulness. Be more awake and aware. Don't let yourself go unconscious and stumble around the room or stumble out into life and stumble into an open manhole and then get mad that somebody left the cover off. Stay awake and aware. Point number 6. Test yourself constantly. Only rest yourself accordingly. Test yourself constantly. Only rest yourself accordingly. That one flies right by me. Now, a little part of my mind is saying, oh, testing yourself means, pay attention to the results you're getting, to my eye and ear. Rest yourself accordingly. I'm making stuff up here. I don't know exactly what he means. For me, I'm frequently spending time reminding people of the benefits of being gentle with themselves. So maybe that's part of this, and stated in a different way. The seventh point is, anchor yourself in capital P, presence. Seal yourself off from all considerations of the past and the future, save for the practical purposes that they afford. Guy Finley writes, each of these rules stands alone, but when seen and understood collectively, these lessons will provide you with a kind of map to help you navigate and chart your own consciousness. The first great requirement for all who would make the journey to oneness: be patient with yourself, work consistently, persist no matter what. Do so, and you'll soon find that hidden within these laws is a part of yourself you have forgotten exists, and in its remembrance is revealed a capital L new life that is fulfillment itself. Be patient with yourself, work consistently, persist no matter what, and you'll find a self within you that leads to fulfillment itself. He offers a closing prayer towards a future free of human sorrow. There can never be an end to the hatred of others, to neither the violence it begets nor the fear it breeds, until we see there is no other. What is right before our eyes should be clear, and yet it remains unseen. What is that? Everybody strives, everybody has fears, everybody has hunger, and everybody has hopes, which means all are without sight, as if blind to our overriding oneness. We're all the same. How many ways can we be the same and still look for differences and still pretend to be separate? Guy writes, and so it is until the time comes when all eyes can see that we're all the same and all connected. In truth, until all eyes can see that there is no other, then those few eyes who have been opened must agree to lay down their lives for their, quote, others, close quotes. This is the pain that alone embraced ensures, one by one, a future free of human sorrow. As we embrace this pain, it's the only way that each of us, one by one, embrace this pain, that we can ensure a future that's free from human sorrow. He writes, this is the path, the journey to one, capital O-N-E. May you walk in peace. And then at the end of the book, he has a chart that lists the dates of birth and death for most of the people that he's quoted, these experts, these geniuses, these philosophers and religious leaders, etc. And they go all the way up to present day. People who are born in the early 1900s to the mid-1900s. He includes himself, born 1949, and Muji, born 1954, and the Dalai Lama, born in 1935. So, Guy Finley is now somewhere probably in Smyrna Beach, Florida. New Smyrna Beach, Florida, wherever that is. So we have plenty of time for comments, questions, answers, testimonials, suggestions for other books, etc. How can we support you? So I suppose my curiosity is up, and I will look for New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and see how far south that is. I have set up some new pre-interview calls for this week. New Smyrna Beach looks like it's right by Daytona Beach. So I have put out the call once again for people you might know or be interested that would be good for me to interview either here on the Mind Shifters Radio or for the On Your Mind podcast. I'm excited for what might come develop as an actual event we do between Suzanne Roberts and me. And I'll be in my next communications with her asking for permission to share the documentary that she did about her work. So that might be something I share in the not too distant future here on the Mind Shifters Radio. And yet, we have plenty of time for discussion or comments or worksheets. I know that people are in the intensive and they're busy right now. Sally dropped a note and said she's thinking of us and she's working, but she's in the middle of the intensive. So if you're unmuted and trying to talk, please speak up.
This is Celinda.
Welcome.
Welcome. Also, Larry and I are still going through Positive Intelligence. We've also picked up that Jean-Francois Benoit book that I mentioned to you. Actually, the gentleman I mentioned to you, he had this non-12-step addiction center in Hawaii, and he has actually just moved to Monroe, which is very interesting. But he is a certified option, what would you call it? Certified option facilitator, and he wrote the Viva la Vie book I mentioned. I think I texted it to you, and also Addicted to the Monkey Mind, and they're in story formats. And I would think that with what I'm finding is it's very close. I think there's maybe a Ho'oponopono basis to it, but I would suggest him as a possible person to reach out to.
And his name again is what?
Jean-Francois Benoit. I think it's slightly French, and I can send you the information again if you like.
John what?
I think he had Francois.
Francois?
I know. Let me see. Jean, Jean, Jean. Francois, Francois. I'm flying now by the seat of my pants. And Benoit is B-E-N, B as in Baker, E-N as in Naples, O-I-S-T T, I believe. Let me look it up. Right now I have the book. Addicted to the Monkey. Well, yeah. J.F. Benoit. So John Francois. And then he wrote the second book, again in a story format, which basically, Addicted to the Monkey Mind, gives all of his procedures or ways, tools, if you like, that he used in his non-12-step addiction center in Hawaii. As an option facilitator, I think he went through Barry Neal Kaufman's The Option Process Institute in Massachusetts, and Barry Neal Kaufman was the gentleman that wrote Sunrise and To Love is to Be Happy With in the 80s, I believe. And I thought of him also as a possibility for, he has a very successful institute back east in Massachusetts.
All right, I'll look into it. Thank you. J.F. Benoist is how he presents himself.
Yeah, and since I don't speak French, I would say Benoist just like you, but apparently it's Benoit. Good luck. And then I wanted to say one more thing for you, to you, and for us all, that I just flashed on when you were reading Guy's book at the end. He gave the 7 spiritual laws, I think is like the way he put them. And then he added the 3 practices on the end. And I realized when you put them together, it's very, very interesting because they are 10. And it's like the spiritual counterpoint to the 10 commandments of the Old Testament. And I think he's very strong on his Bible scholarship. So I just thought that was a sweet little twist.
Who is the one who's strong on Bible scholarship?
I think Guy Finley, because he refers to it a lot, that he's, delved into it and made connections. Not that he's conventional Christian or anything, but just that it feels like when you read him and he offers these quotes that he's very familiar with Bible scriptures or something like that. So that was kind of an imagination I had. I don't know if that's so or not.
Well,
but I thought it was a sweet connection for those who are more conventionally oriented.
All right. So is there anything that you're working with or struggling with that we can support you in today?
Oh, yes, the ongoing realization and the falling back into old patterns of having to have the last word, having to be right, having to defend myself, those sorts of things. I'm working with them. And I love that mind shifter. It's my go-to. So I appreciate that. That of any mind shifter I've ever been given, that mind shifter you gave me is hands down the go-to one for me.
Glad to hear it. Hope it continues to be useful and that you can lay it down when it's no longer useful.
Yeah, that's good. And also the positive intelligence. That is really useful for me. And my biggest challenge is to not get distracted and to really be able to focus and intend to do the practices, and I'm working with that.
Yeah, the practices are critical, and in my way of thinking, what's happening, he's now doing research that's quantifying some of the benefits people are getting when they're doing breath work and EFT tapping throughout the day, because those are basically the same kind of focus he has in his PQ reps, right, where you're just focusing in the moment consciously about your physical sensations, and you're letting any other thoughts you might have about it just fly by. Well, that's exactly what we're recommending people do when they use EFT tapping and the relaxed breath method that brings you closer to the parasympathetic response and the goal canceling. All of it lines up beautifully with what he's researching and getting really solid results with in his research for people who do what he calls PQ reps. In other words, take 10 to 15 seconds many times during the day to just get centered in the present moment and move the focus of your attention away from your thoughts about the moment just into the experience of it. And the more people do that, the more they develop what he calls this positive intelligence connection, and it gets louder and longer and stronger. So your connection to your sage, to your inner wisdom, gets stronger, and the volume on the voices of your negative self-talk, what he calls the saboteurs, gets turned down lower and lower the more you practice this focusing and choosing of the focus for your conscious awareness. So it's a book I highly recommend, and a practice that people have been telling me for decades now is making their lives better.
Sweet. And are you familiar with the mindfulness-based stress reduction program of John Kabat-Zinn?
Well, I'm not thoroughly familiar with it, but I know him, and I know he's got programs like that, yes. I know he's one of the first, over 50 years ago, to talk about mindfulness and try to bring Western consciousness to focus on that.
Have you ever considered seeing if you could interview him?
No.
Because I'm using his book as a reference point also, along with all my other little tools. And I would love for the two of you to have an interview. He's a practicing Zen. Not Zen, a Buddhist. I think he might be one of the Buddhist sects. That's his basic spiritual. But there's so much of what he says that's exactly what you're saying from my point of view, just in his words, of course. And I would love to see him have an interview with you. That would be great. Have you interview him. I think you both would enjoy it.
I'll check it out and find out if there's a way that I can get a message to him and make the offer.
Sweet. And thank you again for everything. You and Michael and Jeanie have allowed me more spiritual growth, I think, than anything else that I have. You have given me the space to grow spiritually more than more than any other practice that I have gone through in my life.
Well, congratulations for picking up the tools and using them, because that's the only way that your life would get better as a result of being exposed to them. Many, many, many people have been exposed to these tools and not chosen to do anything with them. So congratulations for your willingness to do that.
Thank you. One of my strong suits is commitment and persistence, and I will keep doing that as we walk our way together.
So John Kabat-Zinn has the Center for Mindfulness and a listing at the Omega Institute.
And this Full Catastrophe Living it's a real tome, but it's an amazing book. fell into my lap on a free shelf at a secondhand store. That I'd been looking for this book for 20 years, but wasn't ready to buy it. So I grabbed it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome and deserving. Thanks for the call and the comments and the suggestion. If you're on the call and you've got a similar suggestion, please either email me or unmute and let me know right now. And every once in a while when we check out these people, even though they have far more reach than my little podcast, every once in a while they say yes. So I do reach out. Most of them are dust in the wind, but I will send out the request. And if you haven't already done so, I would recommend that you take a listen to yesterday's podcast on the On Your Mind podcast. Was an interview I did with Suzanne Roberts on her book, It's Deeper Than That, where she explores her decades of work with polarity therapy and how it's evolved into the work of the Great Reconnection, or something similar that she's calling her work now, where she's actually gathering people together to create an energetic experience that lets people feel the power source they're tied into and the way everyone around them is tied into that as well. So if you've got a suggestion about anyone like that, please let us know. If you have any questions or comments after you've listened to the podcast, please let me know. And I'll use your feedback to help craft the next interview. So,
Tim?
Yes.
Would there be time, and if nobody else has put a hand up, I would love to hear that list. I don't know what you call them. I came in late to the
list
radio
at the end of Guy Finley's book?
Yes.
Well, there's a couple things here. One of them is he's trying to get us to understand that when we are feeling overwhelmed or fearful and we listen to those negative voices, they will only, always and forever, keep us imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last few sections I was reading are all about expanding away from the fearful negative thoughts and taking the next first step, even though we have no idea where it's going to take us and we can't see the end from the beginning. So embark on the endless journey of self-discovery is what the theme has been for the past few segments. And the idea is that there is this power, this connection to a higher consciousness inside of you. So the search is not external, it's internal.
Mm.
And so if you work on that internal process, then you're emptying yourself, and then love can fill you up. Did you remember that from yesterday, the talk about life will fill whatever you empty? And whatever you fill, life will empty? That's the code. That's the hidden conduct of contentment wrapped in mystery, filled with contradiction. There's no sense in trying to save yourself by holding out. There's nothing that you have held on to that has filled the hole, has it? So then be hollowed out. Let the winds of change play you instead of punishing you. I remember he had a talk where the spiritual school, and the summit of the spiritual school was that people would go and they'd go to the library and they'd check out this little tiny harp. And the assignment was to play that harp and stay at peace. And the thing about the harp was everyone who tried to play it, it got on their nerves. It just made them want to scream and smash the harp, etc. And so this one person eventually had checked it out so many times, thought maybe I'll never check it out again. But finally, to one more time, she checked out the little harp, and she carried it around with her. And every time anything bumped it or whatever, it just made the horrific noise. And she got so fed up, she went out to her favorite spot on a hill, a grassy hill overlooking the school for aspirants. And she sat there, and a breeze came up, and she thought she heard the most amazingly beautiful sound she's ever heard. And she looked around her, and there wasn't anything there except her and this tiny little harp sitting on the blanket next to her. So she got an idea, and she grabbed the harp and just stuck it up in the air so it could catch the breeze more, and there was the sound.
That's a beautiful story. That isn't what I
know, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Hollow yourself out. Look inside. Don't look outside of you. And then, as he gets to these 4 ideas about how the more the gloomy voices talk to us, the more discouraged we feel. And the more discouraged we feel, the more certain we are that we don't have any choice but to feel just the way we're feeling. And then the more convinced we are we have no choice, the less choice we actually have. And then these unconscious inner dialogues actually produce the very dead end that we feared. Right? So then the last segment is titled, Go Beyond Your Present Limitations to Meet Your Limitless Self. And here are the 7 rules for those who wish to know. If you want to know something about how to be one with the divine life that is the unseen source of all that exists. Number 1, choose what is and let go of all that isn't. In other words, just go with the flow of life and quit trying to judge it and say it's bad or wrong or try to make it be something different. Choose what is and let go of all that isn't. Point number 2, give yourself completely to what you love only if it loves you. So this is not any kind of an invitation to fall into an abusive pattern, right? This is where I highlighted the difference between healthy choosing what you love and something that loves you and then pouring your energy into that, as opposed to falling into the kind of abusive pattern that Liz Gilbert writes about in her book All the Way to the River. The third point is, do nothing more or less in the world than what is needful. That allows you to pursue freely what your heart calls you to do. So in other words, you don't let other people frame and set goals for you. You go inside and ask your own inner guidance what would be best for you. The fourth point is, share with others only what is true or otherwise conducive to your mutual well-being. Share with others only what is true and therefore useful to your mutual well-being. Number 5, never leave your mind or your mouth unattended. Right? Here's the invitation to be awake, to pay attention, to take a breath, come fully awake and aware. The guy Finley calls us to so often. Point number 6, test yourself constantly. Only rest yourself accordingly. So go out there and try to take that step, even though terror is telling you you're not good enough and it won't work out. So you keep yourself in motion and you rest accordingly. And then number 7, anchor yourself in capital P presence. Seal yourself off from all considerations of the past and the future except for the practical purposes that are needed. Anchor yourself in the present moment. Seal yourself off from all considerations about the past and the future. The past and the future are things you can't do anything about. Right now in this moment, you're given the gift of life and this experience, and you're given the gift of the dominion over your consciousness, and whatever you focus on is by law going to teach you about itself. And by law, whatever you focus on, you're going to create more of with that creative force that you have called mind energy. And I see that Don has a hand up. Don, do you wish to unmute?
Yeah, just real quickly. I had written down something you said the other day in my notes, and then I was trying to add something to it, and as often happens for reasons I don't fully understand, when I hit the backspace button, it just starts erasing everything. It was something along the lines of, what can I do in this present moment to serve myself and others, or to bring more active, conscious, present love? I don't know, whatever it was, the way you put it was great, and I just wanted to mark it down.
Well, I don't know. Maybe was it near the end of the show? I mean, I have a new thing I put on the tagline, which is that every time things go the way I don't think they should, or they don't go the way I think they should, every time they work out far better than I ever thought they could.
Yeah, that's good too. That wasn't it. It was kind of near the end of a show, as I recall. I just don't. It was maybe like 2 or 3 shows ago. I'd have to go back and try to find it.
Okay, me too.
Okay.
Me too. So if it comes to me as I'm doing reviews, I'll make a note and let you know.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and